האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה?
Erev Tov and good evening, everyone. We are in the Zera Shimshon on Parshas Beshalach. We are going to do Os Yud Ches, section number 18. Before we begin, let's take a look at two psukim from Parshas Beshalach that deal with the mun, which is going to be directly connected to the subject matter of this week's Zera Shimshon section. Okay, we are in Parshas Beshalach, Perech Tet Zayin, Psukim Dalid and Hey. And the first pasuk says, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. Hashem said to Moshe, Hineni mamtir lochem. Behold, I am going to rain down for you lechem min hashamayim, bread from the heavens. V'yotza ha'am v'loktu, and the people will go out and gather. Devar yom biyomo, the amount for each day on that day. Lema'an anasenu, in order that I will test the people. Hayelech b'sorasi imlo, will they go and follow my laws or not? Next pasuk, v'hoya bayom hashishi, and it will be on the sixth day, on Friday of each week. Vehechinu es asher yaviu, and they will prepare the mun that they have brought in. V'hoya mishne al asher yilketu yom yom, and it will be a double portion of the amount that they bring in every day. And that, of course, was because the mun did not fall on Shabbos, and on Yom Shishi, on Friday, they received a double portion. Double portion came down min hashamayim for each person, and that's what they would prepare on Yom Shishi on Friday for that day, for Friday, and they would have the second portion to prepare for Shabbos. So now let's begin in the Zera Shimshon. Yom Tov Perek Beis, and Meseches Yom Tov, which is a kind of nickname for Meseches Beah, in the second chapter. Tanya, it is taught in a brisa. Omru alav al Shammai hazaken. They used to say about Shammai the elder. We all have heard of Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Well, each of those great academies of learning, the great yeshivas, was headed by an actual person. In Beit Shammai's case, it was headed by Shammai Hazaken, Shammai the elder. And in Beit Hillel's case, it was headed by Hillel Hazaken, who we're going to hear about in a moment. So they used to say about Shammai Hazaken, the great Shammai the elder, Kol Yomav Haya Ochel Lichvod Shabbos. Every one of his days, he would eat something in order to honor Shabbos. Now, how can you eat each day of the week and each day of your life when it's not Shabbos? How can you eat something to honor Shabbos? So the Brisa explains, Motza behema noah, if he would find a nice animal, Omar, he would say, Zo l'Shabbos, this animal is going to be set aside for me to eat on Shabbos. Motza acheres noah hemena, and then if he found an animal that was nicer and better, finer than the first one, ochel harishona, he would eat the first one on that day and save the next one, the nicer one, for Shabbos. And that could go on each day of the week. Each day he could find something nicer, eat the previous item, and save the new one until he found something nicer. So each one of his days, he was either finding something nice and saving it for Shabbos, or he was eating something that he had already set aside for Shabbos because he found something nicer, and then he was saving the nicer item for Shabbos. Every day was involved in some way, therefore, in honoring Shabbos for Shammai Hazaken. That's how he conducted himself. Then the Brisa continues, Aval Hillel Hazaken, but Hillel the elder, Mida Acheres Hayasabo, he had a different way of conducting himself. Shekol Masav Hayu L'Shem Shamayim, because all of his actions were for the sake of heaven. Shenemar, as the pasuk in Tehillim says, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. Blessed is Hashem each day. Ad kan Lashono, until here is a quote from the Brisa. So the Gemara over there explains that what Hillel did was he would, if he found a nice thing to eat, whether it was an animal or some other nice vegetables, a nice salad, a nice fruit, nice kugel, whatever it would be that he would come across or was prepared for him, he would eat it on that day and bless and thank Hashem for that special food on that day. How would he prepare for Shabbos? He would wait till Yom Shishi. He would wait till till Friday, and he would trust that Hashem would prepare appropriate Shabbos food, special Shabbos food, and make it available to him on Friday so he could eat that on Shabbos. So Hillel and Shammai each had a different way of preparing for Shabbos. Shammai's method involved each day of the week building up and culminating with Shabbos. Hillel's method involved thanking Hashem and appreciating Hashem's beneficence every day, and then trusting that Hashem would provide special Shabbos food on Friday and then eating that on Shabbos. So that's what the Brisa teaches us. Zera Shimshon says, Tzorich Iyon. This requires analysis. V'chisalka datoch, and would it ever occur to you, Deshamai lo hayu masav l'shem shamayim, that his actions were not for the sake of heaven? Here, the Zera Shimshon is basing his question on the statement that the Brisa made about Hillel, that he handles things differently than Shammai did because his actions were l'shem shamayim, his actions were the sake of heaven, which seemed to imply that Shammai's actions were not, which the Zera Shimshon says, how could that be true? It would never dawn on us that Shammai, the great Shammai's actions were not each and every one of them l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. So what did the Brisa mean by saying that Hillel's actions were l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven? V'halo adarabba, and isn't the opposite true? Masav mochachim olav. Shammai's actions, as described in the Brisa, prove about him shezohir bichvod Shabbos, that every day he was exceedingly careful about honoring Shabbos. In other words, not only do we have a question because it's safe to assume that Shammai's actions were for the sake of heaven, but also the Brisa itself tells us how his actions were the sake of heaven. Every day of the week, he was going around and thinking, oh, look at this beautiful food item. I'm going to set it aside and save it for Shabbos, to honor Shabbos. And if something nicer came along at any point during the week, he would say, oh, this is even nicer. I'm going to save it for Shabbos and eat the earlier item, which now is no longer the nicest thing that I have of this type, for Shabbos. So his actions were perfectly l'shem shamayim, perfectly for the sake of heaven. So Zera Shimshon is posing the question, why did the Brisa make a cryptic statement that Hillel's actions, and seemingly only Hillel's actions, were l'shem shamayim? What does that statement mean? Now, top of the next column. Omnam, however, Bereish Beya, at the beginning of Meseches Beya, and this actually comes from the very first Amud, a very, very famous Mishnah there, on the first page of the tractate Beya. Sinan, it is taught in a Mishnah, Beitza shenolda b'Yom Tov, an egg that is laid on Yom Tov, Beishamai omrim te ochel, Beishamai says you may eat it, Beis Hillel omrim lo te'achel, and Beis Hillel says you may not eat it. Okay, so you own a chicken, and your chicken lays an egg on Yom Tov. Before you eat it, you need to know there's a machlokes, an argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel regarding that egg, with Beis Shammai saying you may eat it on Yom Tov, and Beis Hillel saying you may not eat it. There's a discussion there in the Gemara about what exactly is the case Beis Hillel and Shammai are arguing about, and we're going to see a statement. We're going to now see a statement about that exact issue. What is the case? Ve'oki Rabbah, the great Amora, the great Talmudic sage Rabbah, established that the argument of Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai was talking about the following case. So I'm sorry, I stopped the word too soon. V'oki Rabbah plug taihu, and Rabbah established that their argument was talking about b'yom tov la'achar Shabbos. When you have a Yom Tov day which followed right after Shabbos. So imagine you celebrate Shabbos and then Motzei Shabbos ends and you go right into the beginning of a Yom Tov. So that night and the next day is Yom Tov, and that's when your chicken laid an egg on the day of Yom Tov that followed the previous day, which was a Shabbos. Umishum hachona, and the issue of whether you can eat the egg or not is the issue called hachona, preparation, and we'll see what that means soon. De kol beitza de misyalda ha'idna me'esmol gomar, because every egg that is laid today, it was finished being formed on the previous day. And why should that be a problem if the egg you want to eat on the day of Yom Tov on Sunday, when a Yom Tov falls out on a Sunday, was finished inside of the hen being formed on Shabbos? That's a problem of hachona, dichsiv, because it's written in the Torah, v'hoya bayom hashishi v'hechinu. The Torah says, and this is, of course, is the pasuk that we read before we started, one of the two psukim, and when Friday will come, they should prepare the mun that they collected and prepare the double portion, the second part of their double portion, they should prepare it for Shabbos. Uperish Rashi. Rashi explains what Rabbah is saying. Umishum hachona osri la Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel forbids a person to eat the egg that his hen laid on Yom Tov, when Yom Tov follows a day of Shabbos, to kol beitza de misyalda ha'idna, because any egg that is laid today, so this egg was laid on Sunday, me'esmo gomri law. It was finished being developed in the hen the previous day on Shabbos. Ve'af al gav dibidei shamayim hu, and even though it was developed through Hashem, that means that no human action was involved in preparing the egg. It was all an internal process in the hen, and it followed the laws of nature that Hashem created. Nonetheless, usher, it's still forbidden, v'chulei, etc. It's still forbidden according to Hillel. Ad kan Lashono, until here is a quote from Rashi on the Gemara. So let's pause for a moment to understand this argument, which is going to be central to the explanation that the Zera Shimshon is developing to answer his original question. So we'll go back. The egg is laid on a Sunday, which follows a Shabbos. So Beis Shammai looks at that situation. Beis Hillel looks at that situation, and Beis Hillel says, we've got a problem. This egg is forbidden. Why? Because you're supposed to prepare the food that you eat on a Shabbos day or on a Yom Tov day on the previous day, on the weekday that precedes that Shabbos or that Yom Tov. So we should prepare our food on Friday for Shabbos. And if there's a Yom Tov day, we should prepare our food on the weekday before that Yom Tov day that immediately precedes that Yom Tov day. But Beis Hillel Beis Hillel says here that's not happening, because this egg wasn't prepared on a weekday preceding the Yom Tov. It was prepared, meaning fully developed on its own inside of the hen on Shabbos, which was the day immediately preceding the Yom Tov day in this specific case. And Beis Hillel says that's not going to work. That's not the way things should be done. So you're not allowed to eat that egg on Yom Tov. You can only eat food that you previously prepared for the Yom Tov on a weekday, or of course the food that you yourself make on Yom Tov when cooking is and food preparation is generally permitted. Let's continue. V'hashta osi shapir. V'hashta osi shapir. And now things make sense, meaning we can understand the argument between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai svira lahu. Beis Shammai is of the opinion that tzarech hachana michol l'Shabbos. Beis Shammai holds that you have to have preparation made on a weekday before Shabbos. V'hachana bidei shamayim lo mikarya hachana. And preparation that is made through natural causes or through the hands of heaven, meaning through some miraculous intervention, either one of those, lo mikarya hachana, that's not considered hachana preparation. That's human beings, people preparing food. That's what Beis Shammai calls hachana preparation. But natural processes that take place on their own through Hashem's a creation of derech hateva, of the laws of nature, or an intercession or intervention from Hashem, a miraculous way of preparing food for a person, is also not considered hachana according to Beis Shammai. V'lochein, and therefore Shammai hazokein, this goes back now to Shammai the elder, lo hayurotze lehamtin le'erev Shabbos. He did not want to wait until Friday, lehachin leShabbos, to begin preparing for Shabbos. Shema lo yizdamin lo davar tov v'yafeh. Perhaps nothing good enough and special enough for Shabbos would come available to him. Ve'af im yizdamin lo, and even if something did become available, pen yiyeh b'derech nes, maybe it would come to him in a miraculous way. Ki min hashamayim yazminu lo, because min hashamayim, in a heavenly way, they would, of course, want Shammai hazaken to have special food for Shabbos, and they would make sure that that happened. V'lo mikarya hachana, and Beis Shammai would say, or Shammai himself, the elder, would say, that's not fulfilling human preparation and human preparing for Shabbos. Umishum hachi hayemechin mechad b'Shabbos. You can see a little typo there. It says b'Shabbat, but it should be b'Shabbos. And therefore, Shammai the elder would prepare himself all week long. Beginning on Sunday, he would begin setting aside food to eat on Shabbos. So what the Zera Shimshon has done for us is to take an opinion of take an opinion of Beis Shammai, the Academy of Shammai, regarding an egg that was laid on a Yom Tov day, which followed a Shabbos day, and their opinion was it's permissible to eat the egg because the fact that Hashem's laws of nature arrange for that egg to be fully developed inside the hen on Shabbos isn't considered a problem. It's not an issue because we don't call that hachana. We only call human effort hachana in these kinds of cases, and that's not hachana, and therefore the egg is permissible. And Zera Shimshon connected that view of Beis Shammai to the view, to the standpoint of Shammai Hazaken, the elder Shammai himself, who would start preparing food on Sunday and all week long because he did not believe in waiting until Friday. Either because he might not find appropriate food appropriate for Shabbos, or he was afraid that something might come to him in a way that could be considered derech nes or bidei shamayim, and then that would be something that wouldn't fulfill his views on the necessity of having human effort go into hachana for Shabbos. That's Shammai and Beit Shammai's opinion. Now let's move to Hillel and Beis Hillel, that connection. Next paragraph. Aval Hillel hazokein svirulei, but Hillel, the elder, was of the opinion kishitas b'nei hayeshiva shelo, that followed the viewpoint of the members of his yeshiva, namely Beis Hillel. Hillel hazaken followed the view of Beis Hillel. The hachona bidei shamayim mikarya hachona, something that is prepared through heavenly means is called hachana. It is called preparation. V'hoya boteach b'Hashem. And Hillel Hazaken, Hillel the elder, used to trust in Hashem. Sheyazmin lo be'erev Shabbos, davor roy v'hagun l'Shabbos. That Hashem would ensure that he would have on Friday the food that he needed that would be fit and appropriate for Shabbos. V'chol masav l'shem shamayim hayu, and all of his actions were for the sake of heaven, as the original Brisa stated. Klomar, this means to say hayamechin l'Shabbos be'ezras ha'el, that Hillel Hazaken did believe in using heavenly assistance to prepare for Shabbos. V'hachana b'dei shamayim, in his preparation. It was okay for his preparation to be through the hands of heaven, because Hillel, following the view of Beis Hillel, believed that preparation through heavenly means is considered hachana. You do not have to rely only on human efforts. You can rely on heavenly intervention. That's unique to Hillel, because Shammai totally disagreed. And Shammai felt that he needed to start working on preparing for Shabbos himself from the beginning of the week, because it would not be appropriate to rely on Hashem to provide something for him, certainly not waiting until Friday, Erev Shabbos, for that to happen. But if it did happen, that would not be considered proper hachana, proper preparation for Shabbos, according to Shammai. But Hillel did believe that was considered proper preparation for Shabbos, and that is exactly what Hillel relied on. And so that's why the Brisa that we started with said Hillel's actions were kulo l'shem shamayim, were all for the sake of heaven, meaning not that Shammai in general didn't do actions l'shem shamayim. Of course he did, but rather Shammai specifically regarding preparing for Shabbos and Yontif did not rely on Shamayim, and Hillel did. Continuing next paragraph. V'hapasuk v'hoya bayom hashishi v'hechinu. The pasuk that we looked at about the mun that stated, and it will be on the 6th day, and they will prepare the mun for Shabbos. L'chorahu miduya keshamai. It seems that pasuk seems to giving an edge to kind of indicating or implying to us like Shammai's position. It seems to be in accordance with Shammai's position. Shehoya lo lomar, because the pasuk should have said, V'hoya beyom shishi v'hechinu. It should have said on the 6th day, meaning beyom shishi without the hey, that's actually in the pasuk. And they prepared. That's what you would expect the pasuk to say. But the pasuk said v'hoya bayom hashishi, and it was on the 6th day. So Zera Shimshon says, hey yisera lomoli. Why did the Torah need to put in that extra hey in the word hashishi in that pasuk? Ella, but what's the reason? Lirmos lanu, to hint to us, Sha'af b'chol hachamisha yomim rishonim. It's to hint to us that even during the earlier 5 days, shel hashavua of the week, meaning Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, tzarich ha'adam lehachin, a person needs to prepare, ulehazmin, and to get ready, lichvod Shabbos, to honor Shabbos. So the hey, which has the numerical value of 5, is coming to tell us, don't just prepare on Friday, don't just prepare on Yom Shishi, on the 6th day, prepare b'Yom HaShishi, prepare on the 5 days represented by the hey that come before Yom Shishi, prepare Sunday through Thursday before you get to the Friday. Ulefi she'ikar hachiyuv hu b'Yom Shishi, since even Shammai agrees that the primary obligation of preparing for Shabbos starts on Friday, lochein hachamisha yomim harishonim ba'u beremez. That's why the Torah only hints to the idea of preparing on the previous 5 days of the week, the Sunday through the Thursday. It's hinted to us in the letter hey. Umnam, however, hashishi, the word hashishi, continuing to the top of the next column, Bo Beferish. The idea of preparing on the sixth day is stated explicitly in the pasuk. It's not just hinted to. Ki ikar hachana v'hazmona teluya bo bayom, because the main preparation and work that we do to get ready for Shabbos is dependent upon doing those things on Friday. So the Zera Shimshon has given us a support from the pasuk for Shammai in the form of looking at the extra letter hey, the unnecessary letter hey in the word hashishi, and telling us that that is the source for Shammai's approach of using, starting on Sunday to find foods and set them aside for Shabbos, and doing that throughout the week, through all 5 days of the week, and then making sure on Friday that you have everything ready for Shabbos. Ve'od, and there's another support that we can bring for Shammai Hazaken's position. Minog ha'olam shenikru kol yemei hashavua b'shem Shabbos. It is the widespread custom in the whole Jewish world to call all the days of the week based on their connection to the day of Shabbos. Rishon b'Shabbos, we call Sunday the first day as we move toward Shabbos. Then Sheni b'Shabbos, we call Monday the second day as we move toward Shabbos. So this is a universal custom. Lirmos, this hints shebechol yom vayom, that on each day of the week, tzrichim anu lizkor miyom Shabbos kodesh. We need to recall and think about the day of Shabbos. It shouldn't be that it's only Friday, when we get to Friday, that we start thinking about Shabbos, and only on Shabbos itself that we really think about Shabbos. No, Yom Rishon, you think it's the first day towards Shabbos. Yom Sheni, you think it's the second day, and so on. There's a hint in this minhag, this universal custom, that we should think about Shabbos every day. Lahochin lo ezed davar, to prepare something for Shabbos, exactly like the custom of Shammai the elder. Shemei olam lo hayizichron Shabbos zaz mitoch piv, because of his way of conducting himself, the idea of remembering Shabbos never was removed from his mouth. Lokach behema, if he purchased an animal, Omer zo l'Shabbos, he would say the words, this is for Shabbos. Lokach kli chodosh, if he purchased a new utensil, a nice new vessel for Shabbos, Omer, he would say zeh l'Shabbos, this is for Shabbos. So the Zera Shimshon now in this second support has shown us again that the idea that Shammai Hazaken exemplified of buying things all week long for Shabbos and articulating and saying this is for Shabbos is a beautiful custom, and it fulfills the idea of connecting every day of the week to Shabbos and not waiting to Friday or Shabbos to think about Shabbos. So Shammai's position is certainly well supported. Continuing, of course, we don't want to leave Hillel Hazaken out in the cold. So now here comes the Zera Shimshon is going to talk about supporting Hillel's position. Aval kishen is nedaktek shapir. However, when we look more closely into this matter, muchach mikan af svaras Hillel Hazaken, we'll be able to bring support and prove the logic behind Hillel, the elder's position as well. Sheharei bamon lo hayu yicholim lehachin. When it came to the mun itself, the heavenly bread that fell down from Shamayim for Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar, in the wilderness, lo hayu lechoyim lahachin ela be'erev Shabbos. They only could prepare the mun for Shabbos on erev Shabbos. She'im hayu mishayrim mimenu b'shar hayomim. Because if they would try to hold some over from a previous day, let's say on Sunday, a person thought, I want to remember Shabbos today, so I'm going to set aside a little bit of my mun for Shabbos and save it. Or Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or even Thursday, when you're so close to Friday, if person would set aside a little bit, what would happen? Hoyoniv osh. the Torah teaches us that it would spoil, it would rot. Any mun that was left over from one day to the next would immediately rot and spoil, unless it was the Yom Shishi double portion. So therefore, the Torah itself indicates to us with the mun that Yom Shishi, Friday, is the day to prepare for Shabbos. The Ode, and another point about this, Shehamon shehayu mechinim be'erev Shabbos, the mun that they prepared on Erev Shabbos, hayubah lahem min hashamayim. It literally came min hashamayim, b'derech nes, in a miraculous way. V'chol yom v'yom hayu mitzapim umikavim sheyered. And every day, each day of the week, they would hope that the mun would come down. The Bnei Yisrael didn't have other types of food to eat in many situations, and so they were always waiting. Is the mun going to come today? We need the mun to come today. That's our sustenance. As we say in the 8th chapter of Meseches Yoma, which deals primarily with Yom Kippur. Dimishum hachi haya yored lahem kol yom liyomo bilvad. That's the reason why on every day only enough mun for that day would fall. In order that every day they should lift their eyes to heaven, looking and waiting for Hashem's sustenance, miraculous sustenance to come down to them. So that built bitachon and trust and reliance on Hashem. It built it into the Jewish people. The imkain, if so, mikan muchach. From here, from the example of the mun, it is proven bevaror clearly, kisvaras Hillel Hazakin, like the approach of Hillel the elder. Sheyesh lanu livtoach behakodesh baruch hu. Number one, that we should trust in Hashem's sustenance, like the Bnei Yisrael did in the Midbar for the mun. We should trust in that. V'dai lanu behachana shel afiya uvishu. And it's enough for us to prepare for Shabbos through baking and cooking, meaning we don't have to worry that we need to purchase the things that we need because Hashem will provide them. And then once Hashem provides them, we'll bake them and cook them, like they baked and cooked the mun. Ve'ikar ha'hachonahi be'erev Shabbos dafka, and the main time to prepare for Shabbos is specifically on Erev Shabbos. So you see that Shammai's approach of preparing all week long for Shabbos has very nice supports to it, and Hillel Hazakin's approach of trusting in Hashem in the sense of saying each day when Hashem gives me something, I thank Him and I bless Hashem for that day's food, and then on Friday I trust that I'll receive the food I need for Shabbos. That approach is almost an exact replica of the story of the mun, and so it of course has nice support as well. And both of the approaches of these great Zakanim, these great elders and great teachers of the Jewish people, are worthy to learn about and to study. Yasher koach to joining us this week in the Zera Shimshon on the Parsha of Beshalach, and we look forward to learning again, God willing, in the Zera Shimshon next week.